Protests erupt across Pakistan after a cross-border raid by NATO forces leaves 24 soldiers dead. The incident has severely strained US-Pakistani relations.
Pakistanis take to the streets to denounce the United States. The demonstrations come after NATO helicopters and warplanes killed 24 Pakistani soldiers Saturday during a raid near the Afghan border. The attack, which NATO has apologized for, has infuriated people across the country. Interior Minister Raham Malik condemned the airstrike. The raid on a border post well inside Pakistan has damaged the already strained relations between Pakistan and the U.S. Those have been spiraling downward since earlier this year, when American forces penetrated deep into Pakistan to kill Osama bin Laden. It has also led many ordinary Pakistanis, like this man, to call for an end to the alliance between the two countries. In response to the raid, Islamabad has ordered U.S. soldiers to leave a base on Pakistani soil and shut down vital supply lines into Afghanistan.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Monday, November 28th, 2011, and I'm Darko. My website is right here, ggnonline.com. That's ggnonline.com. And on YouTube, I have a YouTube channel. You can check it out. It's ddarko2012. That's ddarko2012. Also on Facebook, I have a Global Government News group. You can check that out. All the headlines and links, including the Twitter and Facebook GGN accounts or links, will be posted in YouTube's video description, so please check those out. And before I move forward here, if you'd like to receive emails from GGN, you can put in your email address right there. There's a news archive right there, and if you'd like to donate to GGN, you can hit that button or in YouTube's video description. Alright, so the poll here is closed. I'll put up a new one later on, but the next CEO for the corporation known as the United States of America, according to the polls, results say 28 people, 37% say the first alien from off planet, in quotation marks first, because some believe that we've already had an alien as our president. So it's followed by 32%. It was right on its heels, saying none of these above. So a lot of people still think that the next president is going to be white, heterosexual. Okay. So moving on here, we just saw this video. Pakistanis denounce U.S. after deadly raid. That's big news. And I'll just follow up on it briefly and move on to other news with Syria and that. NATO airstrike, which killed 24 soldiers, went on for 2 hours and continued even when we begged them to stop, says Pakistani army. NATO describes the deaths as tragic and unintended. An effigy of Obama burnt as thousands take to the streets in protests. Remember, I was covering that last on Friday about an Obama effigy being burned. I'm not sure. I don't remember if it was from Pakistan or not, but either way, Pakistan army demanded the attack should cease, but it continued. 24 Pakistani soldiers killed on Saturday are buried yesterday, and Pakistan says raid is attack on its sovereignty. Pakistanis demand end to U.S. alliance. Massive anti-U.S. protests in Pakistani cities and Islamabad. Hundreds of Americans, Pakistanis, called on Islamabad Monday to break off its alliance with the United States and get out of the war on Al-Qaeda as protests against a lethal NATO strike pushed into the third day, reports. And moving on here, Pakistan stops NATO supplies after deadly raid. And it says down here, if I can move it, NATO helicopters and fighter jets attacked 2 military outposts in northwest Pakistan Saturday, killing 28 troops. And it says here, Pakistan shut down the NATO supply routes into Afghanistan used for sending in nearly half of the alliance's land shipments in retaliation for the worst such incident since Islamabad's uneasily allied itself with Washington following the September 11th attacks on the U.S. Okay, Pakistan orders U.S. to vacate airbase. Pakistani government has ordered the U.S. to vacate an airbase within 15 days following a deadly airstrike. And it says here it's a remote desert outpost in southwestern Pakistan, reportedly used as a hub for covert CIA drone strikes. Pakistan had previously told the United States to leave the site in June. That's right, I covered that. So the new order to vacate came after the recent airstrike, and CIA order to halt drone operations by Pakistan. So just pretty much the Shamshi Air Base. Now it's saying in northern Pakistan. So we're hearing different reports here. So you can go in there and check that out. But CIA was given just 15 days to stop its drone operations among the 2 NATO supply routes in Afghanistan, shut by the government. So big stuff going on in Pakistan, and it kind of makes me wonder, just say my brief comment on it, and I'll move on because I have a lot to get to, is that it makes me wonder if this was not an accident and this was actually done purposefully, just as a culmination and the closing of this, not really the closing of this theater, because it's not completely closed, although on the other hand, the theater is kind of shifting towards Central Asia and Asia, the South China Sea to be more specific. But as far as Pakistan, they are wrapping it up there and all that, bringing the troops, but they're really just moving the troops from, like I said, from there to Asia and stuff like that. But it's not completely over with. But what they are done with is the old strategy. And before, you had what? The Pakistani people who really just hated their government because their government was a puppet government. Now, what does this do? So you had all these drone attacks going on, killing regular tribal areas, killing people, mostly women and children in these tribal areas by these CIA drone attacks. It's been going on for at least 4 years now, and they just the deaths have escalated under Obama's regime, and or whatever you want to call it. And it's a puppet regime, and the people know that. You know, the thing is, though, is now this is the best way for the West to get their puppet regime in Pakistan, to get its people under its reign. So it's very, very tricky what they do, these games that they play. But they're doing it everywhere else, like in Libya and especially in Egypt right now. The U.S. is backing that whole Egyptian movement right now, the Arab spring rising, whatever. Spring uprising, sorry. And all of the stuff that's ensuing right now is all backed and planned. I can't say for sure that it's planned, but it looks to be. Taliban being paid $150 a month to stop fighting. Says Taliban cadres are being paid £100, over $150 a month, for desisting from action, and will be allowed to keep their weapons as part of a new initiative to end the insurgency in Afghanistan, a media report said on Sunday. The reintegration program, which has the full support of NATO, is intended to keep them from attacking troops of the NATO-led International Security Assistance Force, ISAF, the Daily Telegraph reported on Sunday. Goes on, it says those who have attacked and killed British forces are also given amnesty, meaning they will not be put on trial. The amnesty extends to all Taliban fighters, including those involved in atrocities such as killing children, beheadings, and or hanging women. Let's not forget, remember I've said this so many times about those NATO convoy trucks that are attacked, yet the U.S. supplies convoys are never attacked because they pay the Taliban. I tried to look for the article today, and for some reason I could not find it, whereas before I could just within seconds find that article. Now I can't find it. Either way, for what it's worth, that article does exist, and the Taliban were being paid to not attack convoys for the past how many years? At least 4 or 5 years. So now they're doing this as well. So you can see what's going on right now. Like I said, it's very tricky what's going on right now with the West and what they're doing. U.S. As a basically scale those theaters down a little bit. U.S. private security in Afghanistan pay off warlords and Taliban. This is from June 23rd, so this is almost 6 months ago. And it says every day as many as 260 trucks filled with supplies for U.S. troops are driven from Pakistan port. And it goes in there and it says that that a U.S. congressional investigation found that the HNT contractors and their trucking subcontractors in Afghanistan paid tens of millions of dollars annually to local warlords across Afghanistan in exchange for protection for HNT supply convoys to support U.S. troops. U.S. assassination drones and targeted killings. CIA and the U.S. military have used unmanned aerial vehicles known as drones to target and kill suspected militants, in quotes, in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, Yemen, Somalia, and Libya. Says these ops have been the hallmark of the Obama regime's counterterrorism campaign, and he ordered the first drone strike of his presidency just 72 hours after he took office. It says here the Predator spy planes were first used in Bosnia and Kosovo in the 1990s. And it goes on here, says the Pentagon now has 7,000 aerial drones compared with fewer than 50 a decade ago, and asked Congress for nearly $5 billion more for drones in 2012, says the New York Times. Can killer drones be turned on America? 50 countries are trying to get their hands on military drone technology. What will they do with it? China, Iran, and even non-state actors are buying or developing drone systems. And this title sounds similar to what I've proposed in the past 2 years, which is that not so much Chinese drones or anything coming in, or Pakistani drones coming in or bombing Americans, but the reality of the situation is what? Is that most likely it will be American drones bombing, quote, American suspected militants, and I use this this hypothetical example, which would be what? People barbecuing in their backyard, and a drone just comes and kills them because they're suspected terrorists in the United States. That's how I see it. But either way, U.S. drone strike kills 18 in Somalia. U.S. assassination drone has killed at least 18 Al-Shabaab militants in southern Somalia. According to transitional federal government officer, incident occurred in Al-Shabaab training camp in the town of Baghdad. And this is breaking news. It's been breaking for about 10 minutes. U.S. economy, Fitch lowers U.S. credit outlook to negative. Just thought I covered that because it's all over the news wires right now. Kenya Navy arrests 4 Al-Shabaab suspects in Lamu. And they're being interrogated. So what happens? Well, Kenya, Al-Shabaab beheads 2 men, and that was in southern Somalia by Al-Shabaab militia for allegedly spying for the transitional federal government and Kenya Defense Forces. And let's not forget here, I don't know if you guys have heard this or read this in the news, but there's a lot of people from around the African continent that are up there fighting in Somalia, and they're not just Somalians. There's people from all different countries in Africa fighting with Al-Shabaab. You know, because it's just like everything else. These Arab leagues and the African Union, and these different groups that supposedly support these people, these defenses against the Western powers, are actually sellouts, just like Pakistan's government. They're all sellouts. They're puppet regimes. They're puppet institutions. The ACLU. They're there to bang your pots and pans, but in reality, nothing will ever change. The agenda will never change because the opposition has already been co-opted. Good example in Africa was Libya and Gaddafi, who was basically did a lot for the African continent, especially with the currency. But he poured a lot of money into different programs, like not just quote education programs to brainwash and indoctrinate people and stuff like that, and vaccination programs, but real programs. And lots of money, and he got shunned by the Arabs, and then he turned to the African Union, and they eventually turned on him too. So Syrian regime accuses Arab League of betrayal after sanctions vote. So yeah, it goes in there and says that the Arab League on Sunday approved economic sanctions on Syria to pressure Damascus to end its deadly suppression, and they said they weren't going to do it. Arab League adopts economic blockade sanctions Syria effective immediately. So there you go. Syria security forces commit crimes against humanity. So here we go, guys. Syria security forces committed systematic crimes against humanity, and their crackdown on anti-government protesters. And like I said this before, you really think the United States and the police state that they've set up for when the hoople heads, when the sheeple start to bang their pots and pans in the streets and that and get violent, you think they're not going to have a crackdown? Okay. Syria says sanctions signal economic warfare. Turkey seen as door to Syrian humanitarian corridor. So we got a humanitarian crisis. Now they declared a humanitarian corridor, which means what? A no-fly zone, like Libya. UNESCO blasted for reopposing Syria to committee dealing with human rights. It's like I said, they're both co-opted. Iran, being on the nuclear board recently, getting a post again. So it says here, report U.S. carriers sent to Syrian coast as tensions flare. Then Russia sending warships to the Syrian coast. Turkey harboring Syrian rebels. Then next up we have report France training Free Syrian Army rebels in Turkey and Lebanon. Leading Libyan Islamist terrorists met Free Syrian Army opposition group, and Libya's new rulers, who were helped by what? By Al-Qaeda, offers weapons to Syrian rebels. And this is, of course, backed by the West. They know the end result. They're allowing people to do what they're doing so they can come in and play the saviors, like problem, reaction, solution. Iran-UK relations hit new low as lawmakers vote to expel British ambassador. U.S. made crisis countdown to Iran war. Talking about rhetoric that's going on. 150,000 Iran missiles awaiting Israel, says Iran. And Iran to increase international naval missions. That's right, Iran Navy to hold war games in international waters. Explosion rocks Iran city, home of a key nuclear facility, but Iran says no explosion. Just as planned, Muslim Brotherhood looking to go for a win in Egypt. And Israel, a terrorist-producing country? Thank you.